Recording in progress.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to the December 2nd meeting of the Park Township Zoning Board of Appeals. It's 6:30, so we'll call the meeting to order. It looks like we have a quorum present. We have tonight's agenda in front of everyone, so I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion carries. We also have before us the minutes from our November 11, 2024 meeting. Everyone's had an opportunity to review those, and I would entertain a motion at this time.
So moved. Support.
Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of approving the minutes from the November 11, 2024 meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries and the minutes are approved. Item number 4 on our agenda is a public hearing. We have a request by William Sickle for Roger and Terry Linema for a front yard setback of 30.4 feet where 40 feet is required, as well as a side yard with a front yard setback of 10 feet where 40 feet is required per section 38-246 of the Park Township Code of Ordinances. Said lands and premises are located at 4326 Lakes Edge Drive in the R2 Lakeshore Residence District. This is scheduled for a public hearing tonight. Is anyone present for the applicant? Okay, would you like to come to the podium? Do you have any comments that you'd like to make for the board?
It might be easier if I answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, do me a favor and please introduce yourself.
I'm Terry Linema.
Okay, and is there a paper at the podium for you to sign it?
There is.
Okay, if you could do that, we would appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Do you have any general comments or would you like us to jump into questions if we have any?
Well, I think he's got a site map on there, right? So that's probably the easiest thing to refer to.
Okay.
Just because it's a really unique road situation there. If you're not familiar with it, it is like a little bit of a cul-de-sac or so off from Lakeshore. We're north of Camp Geneva by a half a mile. And it is something where part of it was plotted with the original subdivision. At one time it was sort of plotted, but when we talked with the road commission, they said they know nothing about it. They don't do anything with it. It's been more or less abandoned by them. And then the other section of road actually was supposed to be just an easement, and it's not really even a legal road on your maps. And so the what we're trying to do is, because if you took it literally from the lot line and back, it would really squish the house up into the corner and next to another neighbor, and not taking into account that where the road actually sits. If you look at the maps, you'll see that it is just a one-lane road, and there are no plans by the county to ever improve that road to anything wider than it was. They turned it over to us. We had to make it better and improve it ourselves and pave it. And so what we would like to do is consider the setbacks from the road itself rather than the lot line, because it actually makes the house set on the lot better. And then we're not in the way and on top of our neighbors, for one thing.
Okay.
And we're not any closer to the road than any other neighbor is. In fact, the neighbors on the north side are closer than what we're asking for.
Okay.
If that helps.
Thank you. We're going to hear from staff, and then if we have questions, we'll invite you back up to the podium. Thank you. Okay, Mika, would you like to provide any background information or additional introduction of this item, please?
Yeah, I think the applicant covered most of what it is. They're looking for a reduction in setbacks. This is a corner parcel, so as you often see, you've got the front yard setback requirement on both a front yard and a side yard, so on two sides of the parcel. So they're asking for some relief from those setback requirements. The road situation is really interesting in that spot. It's a public, I talked to the road commission about it. It's a public right of way, so it's still publicly owned, but it's a private road within a public right of way. So it hasn't been abandoned, but it is kind of an unusual situation. And then there's a private road that's a little bit to the north. So as far as trying to figure out any kind of averaging, it just really was there are too many things going on there to look at that. What's being requested is a little bit closer to the street than it appears that some of the other neighboring properties are. But it's a very small area, very small neighborhood. It's just off of Lake Shore, as she indicated. It's more of a drive going in than it is a large road. So as far as any kind of expansion of the road, that doesn't seem to be a concern. It's more just about what's appropriate for setbacks.
At the outset, it appears in looking at the survey, the Niederveld survey, that on here, the 30.4 foot setback is shown on the north, but the narrative indicates that it's on the south. So seems inconsistent. Do you have any?
No, it should be shown.
Yeah, I think that the survey itself was mislabeled. If you look at the GIS map, it also, I think on the survey, let me pull it up. So I'm looking at it while we're talking about it too. It's on the bottom of the page, right? And it says that that's the north. Is that right?
So on the survey, it's showing Lake's Edge Drive. It has this labeled north, this labeled west.
Yeah, no, that's right. That is wrong. That's south.
South is the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
But then is the proposed house oriented differently than what's shown on the survey?
Correctly on here. But they might have the labeling wrong for the direction.
So the garage would be closest to the 10 feet from the south?
That is the side of the garage. The garage doors actually face the west side.
Could I have you just come up and take a look at this? Yeah, thank you. We
We
just want to make sure that we're clear. So
This is the lake over here at that house.
correct. So this is west. And just so the record is clear what we're
Yeah,
in.
they don't show a driveway, but the driveway intention is to go here. Well, you have to watch out for it. So this is where the road actually is right now.
Where's your property line on that side?
Here.
So you're how many feet from the road?
So you're requesting a 10-foot setback on the south and a 30.4 foot setback on the west. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think when they were saying that before, I think maybe it's because it almost could be said flip-flopped in that we looked at what the setback requirements were. I think we're asking that it's 10 feet closer here than what the requirements are off the lot line. And here it's 30 feet closer than the lot line. So I think because the wording is so similar that's where that might come in as being hard to understand too.
Okay.
So this would be, because if you took it off the lot line for what I think is it 40, otherwise.
Correct.
So 40 would push it way over here. And so what we're asking for is to be within 10 of the lot line here. And then this one here is actually 30. So it's interesting to the side of both things. So what I guess we're saying here is that this would be we're asking for 30 off this line and 10 off this line.
Okay.
But it shows it.
Yes, it's just the mislabeling, and we just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure that
yeah.
the house
Is oriented.
is correct.
That is,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Okay, so the proposed house as depicted on the Niederveld survey is correctly shown. The proposed setbacks are correctly labeled. It's just that the labels are incorrect. So where it says north, that's actually the west boundary. Where it says west, that's actually the south boundary. So with those changes, then it does align with the narrative request. Okay, thank you for clarifying. At this time, I think we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Is anyone here to speak on this item? Seeing none, we will go ahead and close the public hearing. I will note that it appears we received one piece of correspondence, being an email in support of the application. Are there any other correspondence to put on file? Okay.
Yeah, I think Bill's letter refers to the fact that we did email the neighbors and all of them agreed to what we were proposing.
Okay,
So they emailed back to us. We gave that to Bill.
okay, because, and then the letter does indicate that as well. Okay, are there questions of the applicant from the board members?
Madam Chairman, I have a couple of questions.
Okay, could you reapproach the podium? Thank you.
Your first name again?
Terry,
Jerry.
Terry with a T.
Terry.
Jerry, it appears that the property, oh, Terry. It appears that the property line facing west
Mhm.
is currently proposed to be what, 26 feet from the road or 30? 30 feet from the road.
30 from the lot line, that which is the normal setback, but I think it's
30
further than that from the
lot
road.
line to the road.
30 is so from the 40 from the lot line. We're asking to be 30 from the lot line, which means we're even farther off the road than 30.
So they're 56 feet away from the street, but 31 feet away from the edge of the lot line.
Okay, and how many from the street?
56.
Okay, and on the south side,
On the south side, 55 feet from the street and then 10 feet from the parcel line.
right, yeah. Understood. Okay. The footprint of the house is not going to cause any view shed interruption.
That's the other reason we're asking, is by putting the house that way, we're not in the view of the neighbors to the east of us.
Okay. In your petition, you indicated that there were 9 neighbors that you canvassed and had no problem.
We canvassed everybody, and everybody who is normally responded. We have 2 people, one in Illinois, sorry. We had a couple that are out of town that are seldom there. They did not respond, but all the local ones did.
The neighbor directly west of
Yes.
the road. Did you contact them?
Yeah, that's Mr. Heisinger, and he responded separately. He actually got back to us just after I turned the other ones into Bill.
And what was the context of his response?
Yes, it was fine. I
No
could pull
problem.
it up. No problem at all, he said.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, I think you can be seated. We might call you back again, but appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, we have this matter before us for a non-use variance. We have a staff memo addressing the standards set forth in section 38-70. I do have a question, Mika. The staff report indicates if the request was granted, that this home would be placed quite a bit closer to the street than some other homes in the area. I presume we're talking about this 10-foot. Well, let me ask it as a question. Are we talking about from the boundary line or from the street? I mean, I drove through there, but everything was covered in snow, so it was a little tricky to see. But I did my best looking at the GIS and using some of our tools to educate myself. But do you have an approximation of how much closer this would be?
But the southwest corner. The other neighbor. The closest one is at that southeast corner, that's about 50 feet away, so that's probably the closest. Most of the other folks are. I think there's one that's probably not well.
And the rendering seems to show a single story structure. Is that a single story structure?
It's there's daylight windows on, oh, yeah, maybe you just have the front elevation. They don't show the other elevation.
I just have the front
Okay,
elevation.
yeah, so there's daylight windows that'll face west out of the basement. And then there's one little cupola room that you see just peeking out of the top. Or a little bit of a game room upstairs where you could get window.
So will the house be raised so that you have daylight windows on the west side?
If you drove by, then you notice that it actually slopes from the road down.
Mhm.
So it's just by the natural contour
Okay,
that instead of filling it up to meet the back lot, we could actually take advantage of its natural line and create those daylight windows.
Would the applicant approach the mic?
Sorry, I should have done that when I was answering you. Sorry.
Terry, the picture of the front of the house,
Yes,
is that on the
south side.
facing south?
Yes,
Okay. The garage appears to be facing
west.
east at that point.
No, it's actually west.
Okay,
Yeah, the east side is all trees. So the whole east side of the lot up to where the house would begin is all mature trees. So we don't want to push into that berm or those trees. So we're trying to fit it on the lot so it makes sense naturally and fits into the neighborhood well.
great. Thank you very much.
so I think to Dennis's point, when we're looking at this,
That's the south.
this is the south, so this,
That's an L shape, so the garage sticks out
This is it.
from the
Okay.
ranch part of the house, if you want to say.
okay, and you'll enter the garage from the west.
From the west, yes, we're thinking so that we don't have a sharp turn into the,
Okay.
to the garage. And just to further what Mika had looked at in the lot line, all the neighbors on the north side, which is where the easement part is, that's where all those houses actually sit closer to the road than what we're asking. If you drove that part, most of those driveways, you can only fit one car, maybe a car and a half in depth. So and that's weird because that's the easement side, but those houses actually sit closer than what we would sit.
How many cars will you be able to park in the driveway of the garage? One or two?
Oh, for us, when we were proposing, we would be able to get more because it would be longer, but the neighbors' houses, because of how they sit in those lots on the north side, those all face, their garages face directly to the street. And they have short driveways because we're off the easement, which is in the middle of the road for their lot lines, because that road doesn't exist on the maps. Now, the neighbor behind us, back in there, there's a rental that's off Lakeshore. They can squeeze 9 cars off that road. So you can squeeze any number you want to, if you really want to.
A question for staff. Mika, 2 of these standards are questionable in terms of being able to be met. what the applicant's proposing does not seem to be that far afield from what we would perhaps give some relaxation to. Appreciate you bringing it to the attention of the board, but do you have strong feelings that this would set some kind of a precedent by acquiescing to either the first standard or the second?
Not necessarily, no. Just wanted to make sure that you were aware, looking at the questions of, hardship and difficulty and things like that, if it could be, you could work within the boundaries of the ordinance. But with that said, it is a little bit of a unique parcel with the way that the road goes through there. So that is a factor.
Did you give consideration to siting the house more to the north to?
Yeah, the reason, a couple of reasons. One is it would put it in the view of the house that's on the east side. It would put it smack into their view. And the other neighbor that sits north is the original farmhouse in that whole development. So everything was developed around them. And it sits very far back to the southeast corner of the lot. So it would push the house like right on top of her too, which wouldn't be very nice. There's an existing well on the property that's on the southwest corner. And if we position the house this way too, it looks like we can keep that well. And then that would give us the opportunity to put the sewer, septic wells and stuff then in that flat area to the north. So we were keeping in mind the neighbor situation and keeping in mind what was going to work for septic and the well.
Because you're currently showing 58.5 feet to the north boundary line from the proposed home, right? So even shifting it 5 feet to the north, you think that would interfere with your plans?
It's already overlaps the east neighbor's house a little bit. So the more we push that way, because we walked it off and measured it off to see where that would line up with the living room windows there for their view. So we were truly trying not to push it anymore that way because it would be into their prime view. And like I said too, I'm an interior designer, so I'm really fussy about this stuff myself or for my clients. And it would just situate the house so oddly on the lot that, trying to position it where it makes sense on the overall green space, if you want to say, because everybody treats what would have been the county roadway as their own yard. So everybody, we're responsible for plowing it, we're responsible for maintaining it, we're responsible for everything. The only reason that there's any right of way there is that the gas lines go by through there. And other than that, and the electric lines, that's the only reason that there's any kind of easement there yet.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Thank you. Okay, I would entertain a motion if there's a desire to bring this forward for discussion.
I'd like to make a motion, but I'd like to hear how my other board members feel with regard to the request. I'm inclined to motion that we grant the request of the applicant, but I'd like the feelings of the other board members, just to see if there's something I missed.
Sure. So there's a motion on the table to approve. Do we have a second to bring it at least to discussion? Okay. So now it sounds like we will have some discussion. So I'll open it to the members to discuss. We have a request for particular setbacks. The zoning ordinance does, in the factors, instruct us to consider, if appropriate, whether a lesser relaxation than applied for, would provide relief. So that is something that can be discussed. Doesn't have to be, but, we'll open it up for board discussion. Your motion, Dennis, is to approve it as presented. Do you have, you are interested in hearing the other board members' opinions about
If they had any
as
strong
presented?
feelings one way or the other,
Okay.
I'd like to have them
Sure.
before. If not, I will go through the standards, do my best to explain why I think that the applicant should get relief.
Sure. Are there any
Okay,
comments at this time? Okay.
it's a non-use variance standard, section 38-70 of the Park Township Code of Ordinances. The first standard is that the strict compliance with zoning ordinance regulations is that the minimum area, yard setbacks, frontage, height, bulk, or density or other regulation would render conformity with those restrictions of the zoning ordinance unnecessarily burdensome. The staff's comments, of course, indicated that the remaining building envelope appears large enough to accommodate the desired home, while the request setbacks would place the home quite a bit closer to the street than those of neighboring properties. However, in my opinion, having visited the property, I don't feel that it puts any undue restrictions in terms of view shed or obstruction. And therefore, I think that this standard could be met. The second standard is granting the requested variance would do substantial justice to the applicant as well as to the property owners in the zoning district. If a lesser relaxation than that is applied would give substantial relief to the property owner and be more consistent or justice to other property owners in the district, the board may grant a lesser variance provided other standards are met. Given this, staff went into quite detail, but the Board of Appeals may view these requirements in totality with what the request is for. And we don't want to deprive the applicant the rights to a commonly enjoyed other properties in the same district. And I find the district to be very condensed, the road very small. And so I'm not thinking that you're imposing any further restrictions than your neighbors are under for where you want to set the home. So I think that this standard can be met. Doesn't meet it, but it can be met. The third standard would be the plight of the property owner or applicant is due to the unique circumstances of the property, odd shape, natural features, the elevation disparity in the rear of the lot. And so the change in grade on the east side of the parcel creates an added challenge in the building site. And that being the case, I feel that this standard may be met. And finally, the last standard, the practical difficulties alleged are not self-created. And based on the fact that the owner does not appear to have taken any action that created this condition, the Board of Appeals can and should probably indicate that this standard can be met.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. And just a point of clarification on the second factor, the substantial justice to the applicant, you're indicating for the reasons stated that granting the variance as requested would do substantial justice, that factor was met.
I felt it was.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. And also, just so that we all know what it is that we're going to be voting on, the motion was, we have two separate requests, but they're being moved for approval together and considered together, and those proposed findings of fact would apply to both. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Is there any further discussion at this time? Okay, with that, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Payne Nyett,
Yes.
Mr. E,
Yes.
Mr. Cerny,
Yes.
and Ms. Morgan.
Yes. Okay, the motion carries and the variance requests are granted.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, and our next order of business is a public comment period. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board and to make comments. Please limit your comments to 2 to 3 minutes per person. Anyone wishing to address the board tonight? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public comment period and move on to item number 6 on our agenda, which is the election of officers. It's my understanding that tonight we will be electing a chairperson and a vice chairperson for the Zoning Board of Appeals. And I am filling in for Mr. Vice Chair Dave Fleece tonight, and it's my honor to nominate him for chairperson since he is absent tonight.
I would support that.
Are there any other nominations for chairperson? Okay,
Move the nominations be closed.
okay, I second that. And we just take that as a unanimous vote, or shall we cast a vote on that? All in favor of voting for Dave Fleece as a chairperson, say aye,
Aye.
and opposed, say no. Okay, motion carries.
I'd like to make a
Congratulations,
motion
Dave.
that Crystal Morgan be elected as vice chair.
Any further nominations for vice chair? Okay, hearing none. We can close the nominations and entertain, I guess we'll cast a vote on Crystal Morgan as vice chair. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Our next meeting is February meeting date. Okay. Enlighten us.
So you received the email today, this afternoon, that was inquiring as far as short-term rentals goes. As you know, the lawsuit was recently, it was kind of sent back. And the judge determined that they hadn't, I'm gonna try to get the right words. They had done all that they could as far as their administrative remedies had gone. And the ZBA is a stop that short-term rentals, that there may be something happening there at the ZBA. The first meeting that is most likely to happen at, that's based on where application deadlines fall, would be the February meeting. I'm not able to be at that February meeting and was planning to have Aaron or Mr. Fink to support that. But if it's a short-term rentals one, it would be better if I could be at that meeting. I have a family birthday on that day. That's not going to be an optional one. So wondered if you would be available on the second Monday in February if we were to choose to move it. We would have to make that decision soon, but
I believe I'm out of the country, but let me double check.
It would be February 10th.
I will be out of the country on
Okay.
February 10th.
I will be available. question is whether Dave would be there.
Yeah, so I'll check with Dave and then we'll make a determination, probably formally at the next meeting. We're doing some talking to try to figure out what the best ways to make that work, but we'll make that decision.
Okay, and I noticed that you provided us a fact sheet and some information regarding nonconformities as informational items for us to review in anticipation of those issues. Okay,
Exactly. So if you
wonderful.
could just take a little bit of time to read through those just to get familiar, and if you have any questions, reach out to me. We could talk about it at a coming meeting as well. But just so it's fresh in your mind.
Great, thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is to announce that our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 6th, 2025 at 6:30. Do we have applications for our January
I
meeting?
think we have one, but I forgot to check before coming in.
Okay. Remains to be seen then, and if we have nothing further, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay,
Support.
we have a motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you very much.